The 2018 World Cup was such an enthralling experience that the transfer window has been largely forgotten about over the last month or so, let alone the fact it will end 3 weeks earlier than usual for Premier League clubs this time around. So, which sides have wisely got their business done early, and who's facing a race against time to get a squad together by the time deadline day arrives? Here's a quick look at what every Big Six club still has left to do. The least: Man City signings, Riyad Mahrez exits, Angus Gunn, Jaya Toure, Pablo Maffeo, Angelino, Ashley Smith-Brown, Rodney Congolo, Javero, Dilrosun, Olaran Waju-Kayode, Divine Nash, Jacob Davenport, Isaac Buckley-Ricketts. 12 players loaned, released, contracts expiring in 2019, Eliakim Mingale, Vincent Kompany, Brahim Diaz, Joe Hart. After masterminding a record-breaking Premier League title win last season and already securing the services of Riyad Mahrez for the coming campaign, Pep Guardiola will be more than happy entering the new season with the squad already at his disposal. After all, he's got at least 2 options for pretty much every position, and Benjamin Mendy, after missing the vast majority of last term, will be like a new signing anyway. The only real issue for City is finding an alternative to Jorginho, who's ended up following Maurizio Sarri to Chelsea instead. It's not an immediate concern. The Italian was being targeted as the long-term successor to Fernandinho at the base of midfield, but if it can be addressed this summer, City will be keen to bring a player of that profile into the club. Overall though, the onus is never really on the champions to strengthen, and a whole host of deadwood from the reserve ranks has already been ousted this summer. If City can sign a deep-lying midfielder and find new homes for Joe Hart and Eliakim Mingala, it will be pretty much a perfect summer for the reigning champions. Liverpool signings: Naby Keita, Fabinho, Xherdan Shaqiri, Isaac Christie. Davies exits, Emre Can, John Flanagan. 9 players loaned, released, contracts expiring in 2019, James Milner, Daniel Sturridge, Divock Origi, Alberto Moreno, Lazar Markovic, Ragnar Klavan, Conor Randall. Although there are some signings still in the pipeline, Liverpool have probably been the Big Six's most clinical executors this summer. The Fabinho deal came out of nowhere. The swoop for Xherdan Shaqiri was wrapped up within a few weeks of the rumors first emerging, and Naby Keita's services were secured well over 12 months ago. On the outward front, there's still some work to be done though. Daniel Sturridge, Divock Origi, Alberto Moreno and Lazar Markovic are now into the final year of their contracts and would all benefit from moves away, but it's more a question of whether they can find clubs who want to take them on, rather than the Reds being obliged to sell. Extra depth certainly won't be a problem for Jurgen Klopp. In addition to the impending arrival of Alisson from Roma for a world record goalkeeper fee, Liverpool's pursuit of Nabil Fekir could go right down to the wire, and if Lyon don't agree a deal with the Anfield outfit, they'll still have the final 3 weeks of August to find another suitor from abroad willing to meet their valuation of the France international. That puts the Reds under some pressure, but if Klopp has proved anything from his last 2 transfer windows, it's that he's fully prepared to be patient and wait for the right player to become available. Signings: Bernd Leno, Stefan Lichtsteiner, Socrates, Lucas Torreira, Matteo exits, Santi Cazorla, Per Mertesacker, Jack Wilshere. 10-player loaned, released, contracts expiring in 2019, Danny Welbeck, Aaron Ramsey, Nacho Monreal, Petr Cech, Stefan Lichtsteiner, Chuba Akpom, with 5 players already signed in an attempt to almost completely rebuild a backline that was painfully porous away from home last season. The remainder of Arsenal's summer business seems to hinge on who could leave the club before Unai Emery can consider bringing more players in. Perhaps Steven Nzonzi will end up at the Emirates Stadium before the close of play, but the question of exits seems far more pertinent. Aaron Ramsey's yet to agree a contract extension beyond next summer. It remains to be seen just how valuable Mesut Ozil is in the eyes of Emery, and Petr Cech could well be on his way out following the arrival of Bernd Leno. In fact, Arsenal could end up with too many players to actually register in their 23-man squad, although the North Londoners will feel there's no great rush with 3 weeks of the transfer window left to go. Emery will be pretty content with the incomings and outgoings that have already taken place this summer, many of which were even concluded before the World Cup, although if there are some big-name departures, the new Gunners gaffer and Sven Mislintat may well be tempted into getting a late signing or two over the line. Man United signings: Fred, Diego Dalot, Lee Grant exits, Michael Carrick, Daily Blind, Joe Riley, one player loaned, released, contracts expiring in 2019, Anthony Martial, Juan Mata, Andor Herrera, Phil Jones, Chris Smalling, Luke Shaw, Matteo Darmian, Antonio Valencia, Ashley Young, Andreas Pereira, James Wilson. The situation on the red side of Manchester isn't so rosy. In theory, United's squad is already bursting at the seams with established talent, but the Red Devils were so far off their noisy neighbours last season it's quite staggering that the only first-team addition so far has been midfielder Fred, the other signings being youngster Diogo Dalot and veteran, presumably third-choice goalkeeper Lee Grant on a free transfer. Brazilian should provide a key point of balance between Paul Pogba and Nemanja Matic in midfield, but the two other departments, the front and back lines, still desperately need addressing. It's not wholly obvious what United's best centre-back partnership truly is. Antonio Valencia and Ashley Young are no spring chickens, and for all the options United have on the left of attack, Anthony Martial, Marcus Rashford and Alexis Sanchez, they don't have any convincing ones on the right. It could well be a case of United needing to generate more funds before they spend big, and there are plenty of players who could be thrown on the scrap heap. Matteo Darmian, Luke Shaw, Juan Mata and Martial all fall into that category as part of a large collection of players whose contracts expire next summer. If that is what's holding up United's business though, there's a great deal to be done before the transfer window slams shut. Tottenham signings: none exits, Keenan Benitez, Anton Walk's contracts expiring in 2019, Toby Alderweireld, Jan Vertonghen, Moussa Dembele, Fernando Llorente, Michel Vermklassic. Tottenham leaving all their business to the last minute, but the real concern is whether Daniel Levy's old trick of delaying deals as late as possible to get best value will actually work in a transfer window that ends 3 weeks earlier for the Premier League than the rest of world football. Tottenham still lack an obvious understudy to Harry Kane and are yet to resolve the futures of Toby Alderweireld, Danny Rose and Moussa Dembele. But the pool of clubs interested in those players seems to be getting smaller and smaller, and Tottenham are just one of 3 Premier League sides yet to make any signings. It must be a real bugbear for Mauricio Pochettino, who was insistent upon key changes at the North London club when he signed a new contract at the end of last season. It seems Spurs are once again falling into the same age-old trap, and there are no guarantees Levy can pull it off during what is the most unique summer transfer window in Premier League history. The most: Chelsea signings: Jorginho exits, 22 players loaned, released, contracts expiring in 2019, Thibaut Courtois, Olivier Giroud, David Luiz, Pedro, Cesc Fabregas, Gary Cahill, Lucas Piazon, Willy Caballero. Having waited so long to appoint Sarri, Chelsea's transfer window essentially only started a few days ago when they announced the signing of Jorginho. It's certainly a step in the right direction, but considering how poor Chelsea were last season, finishing a title defence in 5th place, there's still huge work to be done at Stamford Bridge in practically every department. Most worryingly, however, is the list of players who could easily leave West London this summer. Futures of Willian, goalkeeper Thibaut Courtois, captain Gary Cahill and talisman Eden Hazard are shrouded in serious doubt, and should the whole quartet be sold this summer, which isn't a scenario entirely in the club's control due to various contract situations, Chelsea will be facing a real race to put together a competitive and experienced squad in time for the close of the window. On top of that, Sarri needs to find a way of actually molding this squad around his philosophy, which is incredibly far removed from Antonio Conte's in terms of both playing style and formation. It already seems like it will end up being a case of the Italian having to work with what he's been given, rather than bringing in his own recruits. But in any case, Chelsea really don't have long to make up lost ground this summer.